Hello everyone, and welcome back to the RimWorld Rags to Riches series. My friends, once again, I am tickled plum pink to see you back here today. Last episode, we made a lot of progress and a lot of expansions, great big expansions to our great big business and city. Not only that, but also to our technological prowess and knowledge, which is also what we're going to be beginning today's episode with, as well as we have finished our research into irrigation. As you might remember, irrigation is a prerequisite technology into fire suppression, which is our next research project that will actually help us be able to build some fire sprinklers throughout our buildings in case they were to catch on fire, obviously. Not only is irrigation a prerequisite technology though, it's also pretty great as it will allow us to build sprinklers out in our fields, which will make our crops grow much faster. Accompanied with the tilled soil, they will actually be growing at a very expedited rate. It didn't take us very long at all to go ahead and finish up our research into fire suppression, but I have a few other things I'd like to take care of before I begin building these sprinklers, such as ensuring that our friends from the Marshal Service, the soldier and specialist who have been with us for quite some time, are escorted properly to their vehicle. God forbid we have another bounty hunter that catches them right between the eyes before they get in the car. Luckily though, that didn't happen, and the governor ended up paying us quite handsomely. As promised, an excellent cataphractic helmet and 22 bars of gold. Although it may seem like a bit of a strange decision, I decided to give the helmet to our head robot over security known as Bradford, our very first tier 1 android. Technically Jor is over security, but Bradford is the electronic captain, if you will, of course, and thus we need to make sure he's well protected. Speaking of our security force as well as Jor, we finally ended up recruiting the dog, who will now be joining our ranks. It's funny that last episode he was trying to shoot our guests, but now he's going to be helping us protect them. We sent him into the armory to go ahead and equip some weapons. I ended up giving him a survival rifle because at the time I couldn't find his anti-material rifle, but I ended up finding it later, no worries. We were also going to perform a surgery on Red by removing her liver for sale. Unfortunately, it seems that this would be her last surgery that we'd be able to perform though. She was such a gracious person, giving her life for science and money. And now she's in the trash heap and we're going to burn her. Ah, the circle of life. Truly gruesome and beautiful, is it not? Nevertheless, though, as we continue our series, I keep getting mods suggested to me, and I find some on my own that I think would be perfect. One of which that I have recently found is the Signs and Comments Continued mod. With all of our roadways and new businesses, I feel that it would only make sense for us to have the proper signage up, and plus, for many businesses like our gas station, having some neon open signs are really nice, as well as some alcohol/margarita signs, and thus I would begin putting several of these around the city, though there are many other different types we'll be using as well. Speaking of businesses though, we're going to be installing yet another one just across the street from the gas station. We're also prepping for more buildings and businesses to the north of this new shop and the gas station by taking our roadway up that way. For this new business, I want it to be something of a cafe and or mostly just a coffee shop, to be honest with you, where we'll be selling, well, caffeinated beverages such as normal black coffee as well as iced coffee, and that's about it. We would end up creating a small little dining room on the inside for everyone to enjoy their coffee and each other's company, but just in case it's a bit warm out and maybe somebody wants to sit out by the city street, we also ended up building something of a patio. Now the only thing left for us to do was to begin stocking up our inventory. I actually put in a vending machine which is going to have hot coffee on the inside. Don't ask me how that's possible, but it is. And also we have a refrigerator for our iced coffee. Hopefully this little area brings us plenty of profit. And hopefully people have a nice relaxing spot where they can sit around, enjoy their coffee, and maybe read a book. And also we can make money, as previously mentioned. Now then, on to our next research project. We're actually going to be working on transport pods. Now, of course, this will unlock the standard transport pod from vanilla RimWorld, but also, it will also unlock many of the different types of technologies such as spacesuits, space stations, satellites, and all these other things that we're going to need for a private space company in the very near future. Now, while we're working on the new research, I thought we'd better go ahead and utilize our previous research into fire suppression with fire sprinklers, and I would actually begin building these in the homes of our tenants. tenants. Obviously, we care much more for the homes of our tenants since they are our money makers. One of the best parts about the sprinklers themselves is that they can be built right into the current infrastructure of each house since all they need is a water pipe to function. Keeping up with the topic of our tenants' housing though, we're going to be cutting down plenty of trees in the area as we're going to be building them something nice, something they can really enjoy, but we need plenty of wood to do it. They have all of these shops and businesses all around their homes, but something I thought that they might really enjoy is a park, somewhere they can go out and enjoy nature, especially since our city is quickly becoming something of a concrete jungle. And I think that this is the perfect utilization of the props mods because, I mean, just look at this park. I am very proud of how this turned out. I've never built a park in RimWorld, or at least not one that looks this good, and I think everyone will enjoy it, employees, tenants, and guests. Now that we have the land properly assigned here for the park and we have everything settled in that regard, I thought maybe we could go ahead and begin laying out the foundations and the structures of some new homes once more, and then I ended up just wanting to finish them out. So I ended up finishing them out by going through and furnishing them with a double bed, a wardrobe, dresser, yada yada, the standard that we're doing for all of our tenant housing. They're basically clones of one another by this point, but I must say I wasn't all that pleased with how this turned out at first, so I decided to actually completely reroute the road into a straight line instead of how it was diagonally coming through here, and that way we can actually have something of a square block here for our housing once more, just as we had previously. And I don't know if I would necessarily say it looks better, but I would say that I am more pleased with it, and it definitely looks more uniform for sure. I also wanted to add to our more industrial side of the city here by building a large sweatshop where we're going to be producing many of our items, such as clothing that we could sell if we were to have a surplus, but more than likely all we're really going to be making here is some Thrumbo plushies. Now, of course, we need plenty of leathers though to go about doing so, and these textiles don't come free, so we had to hunt down some of the local wildlife in what could only really be described as a mass extinction event. However, it was well worth it, as we would end up getting plenty of blue fur, plain leather, yada yada yada, and we could immediately begin putting all of these items to use in our sweatshop by turning them into the previously mentioned plushies, and these are gonna sell like hotcakes, baby boy. Every little lad and lass on the planet of Degum is going to be begging their mommy and daddy to bring them to Hamlet Incorporated hotels just to buy a beautiful toy. And you can take that to the bank. Never mind banks though, as we already have one, but something that we don't have is what I'm going to currently be building in a large expansion of the northwestern side of the city, just off the side actually here of our rooms that we're renting out to guests that we built last episode. This, my friend, is going to be the location of our grand casino, but with the grand scale of the casino, as you can see, we're going to have to build it in portions and or steps. The first and the easiest portion of the casino for us to build is going to be the parking lot. Now, not only will this be for the casino, of course, but this can be for our hotel rooms that we're renting out, which is actually going to be part of the casino itself. In the beginning, this is kind of what I envisioned, a large resort type of area around the casino. Before we begin on the inner workings of the casino, though, we need many resources like steel and components, so of course we're going to be going out and selling our butter, our soda, Thrumbo plushies, everything and anything in between that we produce here at the hotel. We would arrive back home some odd hours later with all of our resources, most of which being components. The reason being, of course, because the inner workings of the casino is going to feature many, and I do mean many, slot machines and other type of gambling machines, which are electronic and thus need components. Just before we would resume construction on the casino, though, we ended up finishing our extensive research into transport pods, getting us one step closer to a private space company. But now, my friends, the real work begins. This casino is actually going to be one of our greatest construction projects yet, even though it may not look like it. The entire thing is going to be made of fine concrete walls, which are going to be very beautiful, and the reason being because they use double the resources that normal concrete walls use, as well as fine marble floors, which actually use over double the amount of marble that the normal stone flooring would use. We also have marble doors that are engraved with gold. We are truly going above and beyond. Because Because this process can take so long though, given the scale of the construction project, I wasn't paying attention and Paint Sniffer came extremely close to getting eaten by a grizzly bear, but luckily the old boy is tough as nails and ended up taking down the bear himself. Those of you with a keen eye may have also noticed that we've been having some power issues once more, and that I've also been creating quite the little stockpile of advanced components. Well, the reason being, we are going to begin researching advanced power generation, which will unlock advanced versions of the current power generators that we have access to. My hope is that if we get some advanced solar generators out there and maybe some wind turbines, that will solve our power issues once and for all, as I'd like to have a completely green city because, well, it's just easier. But if not, by God, I swear we will build a nuclear power plant. I don't care. Profit first, nature second. We would now actually begin working on the inside of the casino, though, building all of the slot machines and other types of gambling machines that I was talking about, as well as some roulette tables, poker tables, essentially just any machine or table that we had access to try and get these suckers out of their money. Not only that, but in the back of the casino itself, I also built something of a small club and or just a bar essentially. But since we don't currently have a brewery to go about making any alcohol, it's kind of a BYOB situation in the bar at the moment, but we'll be fixing that in the very near future. I think that this is a great addition onto our city, obviously, but also a great addition near all of our rooms that we're renting out, with plenty of space to expand out to the western side with more rooms, and also if we feel the need to, we can expand the casino itself a little bit to the north. But I ask you, my friends, if Jor and the security bots are all protecting the city, who in particular is going to be protecting this casino? Well, I'm so glad you asked, because we are going to be building yet another security bot specifically for the casino. I introduce to you, me compadres, this dapper little lad known as Cal, the head of casino security around these parts. We've got him in a pretty little suit and he's ready to kick ass and take your moolah. To ensure that he doesn't leave the casino and start patrolling the streets, which is against his programming, I'm also going to be setting up an area where he will specifically only guard the casino and be in the casino area, as well as the parking lot, of course. I've seen some really great mods where I can have him do these patrol routes, and I might add those in the future, but for now this'll suffice. I also ended up building him a little small charging pod in the back of the casino, that way he doesn't get a little too EP out there and, you know, pass out on the floor and then you have people robbing the casino, right? Before we continue though, if you guys have any name suggestions for Cal, be sure to leave those in the comments section, as I would love to see some and have a much better name for him. A bit of time later, and the governor of the Marshal Service had contacted us to inform us of a collection of valuable items, an elbow blade and hand talent. Some of their people in the area seemed to be detecting and reporting of an unknown threat by the item stash though. I'm sure it's nothing we can't handle, so I decided to send out a small caravan. Said caravan is going to be comprised of La as well as the dog, who now has his anti-material rifle back, as I forgot that La had taken it and they swapped out weapons. Anyhow though, the two of them would be perfect for this mission, and we could keep Jor here to help out with the city's protection in the meantime. And just like that, off they go. Godspeed and goodwill to ye, my soldiers. Before they arrive at the item stash, we'll begin focusing on a few other things back home. In the casino, once more, I'm sure you're getting tired of me talking about it, but I ended up putting some ATMs in. I quite literally couldn't think of a more fitting place for the ATMs to be than in the casino itself. Now that we finished up our piece de resistance, I decided that I wanted to build some more rooms for us to rent out near the casino, but these are going to be for some high rollers, and I truly mean high rollers. I know I've said that each time I've ended up building a luxury room, but these shall be the most luxurious of all. These rooms will have a royal bed, as well as some drapes, a royal mirror, a large bookshelf, a nice television, and anything and everything in between. These are truly luxurious, and because of that, I am also going to be charging a very hefty price for them in the sum of 200 silver per night. Now, realistically, I know that doesn't seem like all that much, but we don't want the attractiveness of these rooms to be too low, otherwise we won't have too many people actually stopping in and staying in them for a night, and besides, maybe you get some of the leaders of, say, the United Traders Union stopping in for 5 or 6 days to gamble. That's going to be a pretty hefty sum for us. However, our caravan would finally arrive at this item stash, and and even from a distance we could see a large party awaiting us. With the majority of their forces made up of impids, they appeared to be outlanders and or possibly slavers. Upon further inspection, it appeared to be a party led by the great chief Impeticus. Several years back, he led a gigantic uprising of impid slaves against the martial service. A truly impressive feat. Based on the current set of prosthetics that he has equipped inside his body, I'm guessing the items in this item stash are his, and he's not willing to just let them go so easily. And something tells me we won't be able to convert these enslaved martial service soldiers back over to our side to help us out during this battle. Looks like we're just gonna have to kill them all, I guess. We tried to sneak up as best we could in the truck, sticking around the edge of the map itself, that way we didn't give away our element of surprise. But unfortunately, it would seem that they easily spotted us. As they began approaching us, a gunfight would quickly ensue between both of our parties, and Law was actually quite injured, so I immediately got her back inside the truck. The dog having much more appropriate armor given the situation and the circumstances, I would leave hiding behind some rocks, sniping at our enemies from afar. Even given the distance though, and the fact that their weapons were far less superior than our own, they were actually getting quite lucky with their shots. Law, using the truck, would attempt to ram our enemies and run over several of them. If nothing else, it really did help us distract them, that way the dog could fire at them, but she was getting somewhat lucky with running some of them over, until the car broke down. With the gas tank completely blown out, we would have to send her out with an axe to try and slice this lady up nice and good, which of course she ended up doing, thankfully. After doing so, she would then go to regroup with the dog, where the two of them would continue firing at our enemies, or at least what remained of them. We had finally managed to finish off what remained of this squad that had attacked us, though this isn't the entirety of their forces, as we saw earlier. Before we try to take on the chief and his remaining guard though, it would be best for us to go ahead and tend to our wounds. It's not like they're going anywhere anyhow. Now that we've patched up our wounds with some sand and cacti, it's time for us to continue pushing forward, engaging with more of these damn dirty impids. The chief's personal guard would attempt to attack us, but we easily ended up putting one of them down and the other wouldn't be far behind. We continued our march through the desert towards the item stash. As we came closer to the chief though, I noticed there wasn't much cover and we were right out in the open, so I decided to rush inside the item stash itself, but that was a bad move. As Law was crawling, screaming and burning on the ground, the chief would begin chasing down the dog, who smacked him in the head with the butt of his rifle, knocking him to the ground. Phew, talk about a close call. Before the chief's last guard could attack us, we rushed to the doors, grabbed Law, and then began tending to her wounds before she bled to death. Luckily, most of her wounds were just burned, so after stuffing some pocket sand in them, I think she'll be a-okay. We were going to attempt to take out this last remaining guard, but as we aimed our rifle, he hit the ground. Looks like it's been a hellish fight for all of us. Now that we know that Law is safe, we would also begin tending to the wounds of the chief himself. I'm sure the marshal service would pay a pretty penny for his head, but he's also quite well versed in combat, so he might make a good addition to our security force. Regardless though, it does seem that we're going to be hoofing it all the way back home, unfortunately, because our truck has been destroyed due to the combat. This is going to be quite a long journey. I suppose it's a good thing that we packed snacks ahead of time, eh? While we're waiting on our astute heroes to return home, we're going to do a bit of naming, starting with our android by the name of Robert, who is now going to be named Londroid. A great name provided to us by our great and reoccurring friend LazyPanda_420, who, for obvious reasons, chose the name Londroid because Robert mans the laundromat. Quite efficient, makes sense to me. We also had some great names for our security bots, being Roger, 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 and so on and so forth. We're going to be continuing that. The original suggestion here comes from our friend Token Straight Guy, who was saying that we should call them some variation of Roger. For example, Roger 1, Roger 2, and Roger 3. And this was added on to by our friend Teamos, who is saying that we should just keep adding Roger each time, which is really funny and I really like it. I think at some point though, I'm going to have to start adding the numbers in, because to get Roger, Roger, Roger in, I had to get rid of the spaces, so we're already running out of room, but I love the names. Last but not least for our names, we have our cows, with our first cow going to be named Holster, and our second cow is going to be named Turret. These names name suggestions are from our friend D. Adage, who was saying that we should name the cows this because of the increasing militarization of the hotel chain, and I think that they are very fitting names, and I totally agree. And a big shout out, of course, to all of you that have been providing name suggestions. I very much appreciate it. Now that our naming is finished, though, I wanted to work on yet another construction project. You know me and my construction projects around the city. I very much enjoy them. This time, though, we're actually building another house. In particular, this is going to be a special house for Jor. As you can see, it is much better accommodations than the normal circumstances that most of our employees find themselves living in here, but it's also nothing in comparison to the size and quality of Ninel's house. This suggestion to build Jor a house is from our friend Dr. Postal Dude 9183, and I feel that I have accommodated this request and suggestion quite well. And I think with Jor being the head of security that it's only fitting that he have his own little humble abode somewhere in the city, and this one just so happens to be across from the police station as well. Sticking with the suggestion in Jor's house, I've also given him a small room to the back that can function as something of a man cave, but also as a place where he could plot out the security details and all of these other plans that he may need to do around the city to go about securing. And though it is quite small, I feel like this is something that he would be doing in his personal time after work that he maybe gets paid overtime for, or maybe not, but regardless, something that he might end up bringing to a council business meeting in our little meeting area that we built last episode. As you can see, there are some knives and half-finished machine guns in there, as well as a punching bag for him to keep his exercise and his fitness up, and we also have some gun lockers, as it seems to me that Jor would be something of a good old boy. By this point, the dog-in-law had finally returned home with the chief, and we of course threw him straight into the prison and began attempting to recruit him. We could have easily made hundreds of thousands of silver on his head by taking him to a nearby marshal service outpost and selling him off, of course, but we have silver in abundance. Something that we don't really have are good soldiers coming in every day, and if we could manage to recruit him and have him with the likes of Jor, the dog, Law, everyone else, that would be invaluable. Now then, we've actually finished up our research into advanced power generation. We're going to be ditching the old windmills in our fields full of crops and replacing them with the advanced wind turbine, the latest and greatest model in wind power output. Just in case I didn't stress this enough earlier, or in case you're curious as to why I care so much about this advanced power generation, as you can see with an advanced wind turbine, we actually get 5,200 at a max power output, while our previous wind turbines only had 800, so a absolutely significant difference. And as you can see, just with the 3 that we had upgraded and or replaced, I suppose you could say, they were able to keep the entire city powered throughout the night without any sunlight. We do, however, still rely quite heavily on our solar powered generators, so I'm thinking we need a much larger battery bank, or we need more wind turbines, or maybe some water mills or something. However, our power issues have been taken care of, even if temporarily for now, I should say, so I want to continue working on some more construction projects like around our lodge here by the lake. I feel like it's not tied in very well into the rest of our city, and thus I want to fix that. I would end up adding in a small parking lot that could be part of the lodges as well as the cafe across the street, kind of a shared parking situation, but I also wanted to build a small brewery just to the right of the lodge itself. Instead of purchasing alcohol to put into our casino, it would only make sense that we would be making our own. Now, we have enough capacity here for beer, gin, vodka, tequila, and whiskey. And I think with all of this together, it does tie in the lodge quite well and adds a significantly beautiful portion of the city. I don't know if you guys would like to see me do the little details here and there, but I really enjoy doing the little like pedestrian crosswalks here across from the lodge and the parking lot and stuff like that. I think that it really just it adds a little flair to things. Utilizing a lot of the wild berries in the area, we would have Boam begin making our first mash. This particular type of mash is going to be used for gin, although this is going to take about 15 days or so, which is a month in RimWorld, so it'll be a while. But my friends, I suppose I shall bid you farewell, as we have made some pretty enormous progress in the city here today. We've built additional hotel rooms, we've built an entire casino with a bar on the the inside a new home for Jor and even a brewery, and added in a few other things like parking lots and some other little things like that, like I was mentioning. The city is filling up quite quickly, and I'm going to have to try to remind myself that in the very near future we need to save some land for our space program. That way we're not shooting rockets off right next to our town hall. But I'd like to thank you all ever so much for watching. Thank you guys always for the suggestions, names, mods, and anything otherwise, of course. Feel free to continue doing so. It really helps me out with the series to make sure I'm giving you guys what you want to see, and you know, it's just really cool. Honestly, it is. So I love you guys, though. I will see you next time. Goodbye.